Hello and welcome. And thank you very much for joining Sushi Tokyo 2026 today. Now we will begin the session on the alpha in the data. Why diversity is the core metric for Japan's next unicorns. Now I introduce you our speakers. Anna Hall Inc., Yu Shinagawa. Keio University, Hinako Tsutsumi. Koichigo KK, Aiko Katoh. Disrupting Japan, Team Romero. Deloitte Thomas Venture Support, Gen Tsuchikawa. Okay, everyone, please welcome our speakers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. So, since already 1 p.m., so I'd like to jump into the topic. So, welcome, everybody. This session is about the alpha in the data, why diversity is the core metric for Japan's next unicorns. Will be 45 minutes, and we have lots of diverse guest speakers today. And I want to ask so many questions how we can create more diverse and also the healthy and sustainable growth for Japan's next unicorns. So before we begin, I'd like to have everyone to have a 1 minute short introduction from you, each of you. So first, Hinako.
Hello, my name is Hinako Tsutsumi. I go to Keio University and I study startup ecosystem, and I did a research on harassment on Japanese ecosystem. And outside of university, I work in the fintech industry.
Thank you. Tim, please.
Hi, my name is Tim Romero. I've been in Japan for over 30 years now. In that time, I've started 4 startups here. I've done a lot of angel investing. I've taught entrepreneurship and corporate innovation at NYU's Tokyo campus. I ran Google for Startups Japan for a few years. I helped both TEPCO and JIRA set up their corporate venture capital units. And I also run a podcast called Disrupting Japan, which is really a labor of love. I interview Japanese startup founders and VCs about the ecosystem in Japan. I've been doing that for about 12 years, so please give it a listen. Thanks.
Thank you. You should listen, everyone. So,
thank you.
Gen-san, please.
Hi, this is Gen. Nice meeting everyone. And I'm always fascinated by startups. So 20 years ago, I was in Sony's San Diego office, and suddenly a small company called YouTube showed up, which only had 10 employees. And that was followed by working with Google and Amazon and Netflix in their very early days, which really shaped my career. At Sony, I ran business development and mergers and acquisitions, and for the last decade, I've been building Sony Ventures from scratch and invested in 180 companies globally. Today, I am acting as mentor, advisor, whatnot, and it's really a privilege to be working with this group in terms of DEI activities over the last 3 years. And so looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Aiko, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aiko Katoh. I'm the founder of Koichigo. Koichigo is a platform serving working parents and helping their employers as well for their employees to be able to find a more sustainable long-term career within the company and also balancing it with personal life as well. I'm a proud mother of 3 children, which inspired me to start this service. Prior to Koichigo, I brought in 2 companies from abroad, one from Europe, one from Silicon Valley, into Japan as the country manager. With the second company, Global Unicorn, which I think we will highlight today as well, I was also running its Asia operations. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we have lots of different backgrounds, but today we are hosting by the Startup DEI Promotion Council. As Gensa mentioned, we've been working for creating more diverse and inclusive ecosystem together with the multiple stakeholders from the academia and ecosystem builder, investor, and entrepreneur. We discuss, learn together to create a better place that everyone can grow from here. So today is agenda, is the opening introduction, and we will have 3 main topics to discuss, and we will jump into the action and vision for the last maybe 5 minutes to conclude the session. So before jumping to the topic, I like to also a little bit talking about what we are doing. So Startup DI Promotion Council, we have the mission to be a diversity promotion hub supporting the startup ecosystem. So we like to create the DI as a foundation to build Japan's ecosystem more sustainable and growing and scalable business. So this is our core that we really need to bring in DI perspective into the Japan's ecosystem. This initiative is started by one of the investors and the VCs, thinking about that now Japan is way behind that situation, and we really need to learn, and now, not for the future, we need to take action. So the last year, we are also working on lots of activity. One is advocacy, talking to the government and how we can create more sustainable and healthy ecosystem. And then collaboration, which is like IBS is one of the largest startup conference. We are implementing the setting up the support for the harassment and how to dealing with creating a more safe space for this kind of conference. And also last year, the big thing is Expo, Green Osaka Expo. So we are also doing how we can implement diversity in the Japanese economic industry. So this year, we are focusing on mainly 3 pillars. One is information gathering and implementation support, and focusing on a public-private partnership. That is why we are here today. So that's the quick introduction about who we are, and we would like to jump into the topic. The first session is first topic is the current status, analyzing the ecosystem. I want to share that 2 quick data about the state of Japan's startup ecosystem. This is released in the beginning of this year by the BCZ and also the Empower partners, focusing on what's the difference between female founders and male founders. That you can see the top 100 startups by funding, only 0.3% goes to women, female founders. That's like, you can also see that newly listed companies are 2%. It's quite a primitive stage, especially for the women inclusion in the startup ecosystem. If you want that source, you can also scan the code from here. And this is also insights from the female founders that during the seed stage, which is the beginning of the startup phase, the negative, as a gender, the labeling as a gender is causing the negative impact. That's really easy to see how differences between the female and male founders experience, especially in the beginning of their startup career. So we are not talking too much about the gender this time, but this is also, you can see the outlook, what is happening, what it looks like to be a female founder or the minority founder in Japan. So from here, I want to ask Hinako to showing your research.
Yes, good morning. And in August 2024, NHK report shocked Japan, revealing that nearly half of female founders experience harassment. But we need to ask, is it a series of unfortunate incidents, or is it a systemic bug that we need to fix? So today I will present Alpha, our research team from Tokyo University, Keio University, and Kyoto University, and Hitotsubashi University found in the data. So in corporate with METI, we reached out to 13,000 startups across Japan and got around 467 valid data, and to move beyond emotion and toward data-driven policy intervention. And our data confirms that an occurrence of around 31%, and the violators are rarely outsiders. They're actually the essential stakeholders and of the community. So they're actually business corporates and VCs that are two most frequently cited groups in the serious incidents. So when harassment occurs in these key relationships, it creates a measurable systemic leak of talent and innovation. So some of the findings that we found that some people are forging partnerships, they're forced to do expensive pivot, or some even abandon the investment entirely. So we're losing potential unicorns not because of bad ideas, but because the market infrastructure is still containing the point of frictions. To build a global standard ecosystem, we need to move beyond individual resilience to the structural change. So now the critical finding, so the mechanism of the trap. So our analysis showed a direct negative correlation between the network breadth and the harassment exposure. So the diverse contracts act as a structural defense, and diverse networks provide entrepreneurs with reputational oversight and expanded exit operations. So if one investor or your partner behaves inappropriately, if you have a broader network, you could easily escape. But if the isolation, on the other hand, you cannot go anywhere if you experience harassment. And next slide. Please look at this vicious cycle. So when a founder experiences harassment, they don't just suffer emotionally, they withdraw. And by withdrawal to protect themselves, the professional circle narrows, and they become more dependent on few specific actors. And in language of power symmetries, dependency equals vulnerability. So the act of seeking safety makes them more likely to target the next bug in the system. So this is the self-reinforcing of loop of exclusion. So how do we fix the system? So to break the cycle, we propose 3 pillars. So one is support diverse networking. So this, I think the governments could intervene to help people to get diverse networking opportunities. And then the second is the enhanced visibility and conclusion. So there should be a visibility measure where people can easily look at the data and see where the harassment is occurring. And then lastly, it's the implement codes of conduct. There should be a specific rule cited of how people should act. And we need to build a system where safety of founder is guaranteed by the structure itself. And we believe that entrepreneurs, the only thing they should care about is the market itself, not the ecosystem. So let's build a resilient future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the very update, one of the newest data. And thank you very much for bringing that very practical implementation ideas. So these are one of the data, but I also want to know, like a team, you know lots of Japan's entrepreneurs and VCs, you see this community. So how the trends and what is actually happening from your perspective, what you listen to them?
Well, I mean, there are so many trends to home in on. I'd like to actually focus on one particular aspect that this brought up, which is the importance of diverse networks, because I think that is critical not only for inclusion of individuals, but it's absolutely essential for developing a strong startup network in the first place. It's essential for developing this level of creativity. Innovation happens when people in small groups, like-minded people in small groups, exchange ideas. And I think a lot of the challenges that women entrepreneurs face in Japan is largely because so many things are very role-based. There's an expectation that people behave a certain way in certain situations, and normally that's great. It keeps things running smoothly, but it slows change. And so I think one of the most important things we've seen in the last 10 years for entrepreneurship is the idea that a founder is an appropriate role for people to play. When I started my first startup in the late 90s, in the dot-com era, there was not really a concept of a startup. It was venture, which was sort of an SMB kind of thing. But events like this validate the idea that startup founders are a legitimate role. Changing the role to include women can be slower than needed, but once it happens, things click. So I think that the importance of these loose networks can't be understated. And I think it is easier for foreigners to create these networks. The part of the US culture is, oh, you and I are interested in physical AI and agriculture, let's buy some pizza and beer and invite a lot of people. But Japanese people still take a greater social risk. I think there is still this risk that if someone does that, people around them will be like, well, who the hell does she think she is to set up some kind of an organization? And I think that we're seeing more and more of these small groups, these loose ties, this pollination of ideas, both support for new technology and support for new founders and changing roles. And I think that's incredibly encouraging for both the startup ecosystem and women's role in it.
So you pointed out not just for the female founder, but also the founding founders, and you're like bringing the global way of networking into Japanese market, having more like easy access to diverse people.
Well, it's a different way. It's not necessarily global versus Japan. The more people we have thinking differently, bringing new ideas and exchanging them, the better. So if it comes from overseas, that's fine. If it comes from completely domestic Japanese person who's never left Japan but has crazy, unique ideas, that's great too.
Important things to have the platform to meet each other. Absolutely. And having the coffee or pizza together. So thank you for sharing your insights. So the next part is understanding the current status. What can we do to make next unicorn from Japan? So what is the strategy for global, like diversity as a performance metric? So I think like as a global investor and also working with lots of entrepreneurs and multiple stakeholders, what do you see that, especially for the last decade, what is the current trend? What is changing? And also, is there any initiative that people are trying to pushing more things forward?
So thanks. So following up on some of the points, I think, well, first, I think I'd like to give Yu-san and the group some credit for, during the last 3 years, we've worked on code of conduct, making this more open, and finding how to report these incidents, and education in general. And I think that's in the venture industry at this point, it's very hard to say, I don't know what diversity is all about. People have to say, yes, this problem exists. I think we're up to that level, although we still have a long way to go. Yeah. And I sort of agree with Tim's point as well, that like in Sony Ventures, we had a team from 6 different, or maybe not continents, but let's say 4 different continents in the same room, all different genders, and if they all talk differently, there's no room for all these things to come in. And so that's another place where I witnessed the importance of the international network. Going to the discussion around a strategy for global, I think, so there are cases, not necessarily venture, but let's say in the corporate boardroom, the ISS and Glass, and some of these proxy advisors have put forward recommendations that they've been looking at Japan's boardroom for the last 10 years. They started taking action somewhere around 6 years ago, saying that, look, there are just boardrooms which are totally black suits. And that's not acceptable. And that message was pretty strong. And as far as I know, most of the companies I know have at least one female board member as of now. But that's like is that improvement? Yes, it's going from not acceptable to somewhat acceptable, but it's just one step. So in the venture world, I think we'll all talk about this, but I wouldn't say that diversity is the silver bullet, but we see this in many ways, like quality of decision making, the scalability of the company, how they communicate with VCs and business partners. When you look at all those, add those qualities, usually there's diversity in every aspect of that, which is very important in evaluating companies.
Thank you. So, not just for the only for the startup, but also in general, Japanese economy. Now people are taking a slow step, but you see from the Sony Ventures, like the diverse perspective is just a foundation, and you will see more scaling possibility and better decision making. So how we can attract that is and I think as I am also the diversity management consultation and working with the Japanese company. Since they have long history, it's so difficult to change. So it takes a long time. But you said maybe the startup is more easy because we are small and very new. We can actually implement your idea from today, I think.
Well, I think, let's look at it. Let's say a company, there's lots of Japanese companies, but the company I work for called Sony, so it had to sell product globally. So it was not an easy task. And naturally, it became a very diverse company. So it had female managers flying around the globe selling product from the 70s. That's a long time ago. So, it's not, this is something that, and that led to Sony's success. So I think there is something here.
So we can learn from this. Sony is doing 50 years doing this. So what we can do from today. So now I would like to also ask Aiko that you also experience a lot of previous company, and also maybe you see now as an entrepreneur, how we can create this a global, the diversity as a basics of your scaling and growth of your company.
Yeah, I would love to highlight a bit about my previous experience with my previous company called House. It's a Silicon Valley unicorn. So by the time I joined, we were just about to go global. It's a company that was started by a husband and wife, both Israelis. So from there, the husband was head of product, and the wife was head of the business side. And from there, that's already diverse, that is. But when we were going global, the company started hiring country managers for each of the countries. And myself for Japan, I was actually the only female country manager. And it's funny because kind of going to your points, when we did the launch event in Japan, we had over 50 media, a couple hundred users, and it was a successful event. I was sitting next to the founder. Both of us are female. People actually thought I was an interpreter. They did not think I was the country manager, right? So prime example of just the Japanese ecosystem. But anyway, in terms of global diversity and scaling and also go to market, I think with House we were very we benefited from having to hire a team that was already diverse in the sense that we would hire local editors. We would to build the content that we had. We would have a sales team, a marketing team, a product team. All the engineers were mostly based out of Palo Alto and also Israel. So that was, and most of them were male. But because the rest of the team was diverse, and especially for the Japan team, I purposely hired people from like a wide age range as well as different diverse backgrounds as well, right? So the editorial team, I would hire from traditional media rather than tech media. I would hire from, even sales and marketing, I would hire from the traditional business side as well, just because I wanted to hire a team who really understood our users. And our users are going to be the home industry, are the architects, the designers, and people who just come from a more traditional background that were not related to tech. So we were a tech company, but the team was very different from the usual tech team that you would find, right? So I think from there, we already benefited from having that diverse team feeding back to the product side who are based in Silicon Valley to say, okay, this is what our users want, and we would benefit from it. And especially because the Japanese users are so detailed, we provided the best feedback from Japan. And that was actually implemented to the global team, and it really benefited the global global product as well. And I think that's something like House did an amazing job, scaling globally because of that. But the earlier on we can do that, rather than having a full product, mature business already. The earlier on you can do that, you would benefit as an entrepreneur, because it's so hard to change a product once it's out there, right? There's so much time and effort, resources that are put into it. So the earlier on, the better.
Thank you. That's really great discussion about our next session, our next part, roadmap to 2030. I also want to again ask Aiko-san that I believe you says you are consciously hiring the diverse people for better quality product. And I think if you be aware of the importance, you can do. But it's also so easy especially for the startup company, using my own network to hiring people like you, or people only from your network. So how we can be more aware, and how can we create more practical action from your experience to make a diverse team from day zero as a country manager, and also you are doing your startup now. So are there any from the leadership operation or organizational development, is there any ideas from your side?
Yeah, I think not just with the startup ecosystem, but I think in Japan in general, we've gotten to a point where there's so much focus around hitting the quotas. So quantitative side, all of the companies, especially the public companies, are very much focused on hitting those numbers, right? Filling those board seats or management seats with females. But I think I think we're actually at the next step where we really need to recognize that the seats are filled, but are we actually really hearing people's voices, right? So I think the more important question going forward is, how do we actually create a safe environment, an inclusive environment where people feel comfortable voicing themselves? There were times with my previous work where, because I was the only female in many of the meeting rooms, I felt uncomfortable, and sometimes I felt like my voice was not being heard, and I think a lot of women also probably in the audience feel that way sometimes. But what is it that we can do as an environment, as an ecosystem, as the community, to make sure that everyone's voices are heard, especially in Japan, where we tend to be quieter, all right, or reserved. I consciously go around the table in a meeting room and ask people for their opinion. Because right now and also previously, I work with people from larger corporates, also startups, different types of backgrounds, and some people are just not comfortable saying their opinion right away, or they need time to think about things before they voice themselves. And I think it's just people's different communication style, different business ethics, etc. Right? And I think it's so important for the management side, as well as teammates, to really understand and acknowledge and respect where we all come from and how we operate as professionals.
Thank you. So one of our 2026 action, we are currently creating the startup management playbook, and including that, especially how we can create more inclusive communication internally, creating the ground rules for the meeting, not just starting from the founder or the executive side to sharing their insights, but starting from the junior or the newly joined member to speak up. And that will be also encouraging them to having more rooms to joint contribution, and also like breaking the biases, like the founder's bias is very strong. So I think that will be the inclusive communication will be the key. So I want to also going to Gen-san part, how we can create the more scalable, and what would be the one action we can take from your side, from your end?
Well,
Yes.
really, so looking at Sushi Tech, we're in a go global discussion, but so I have lots, sharing great examples, I think is very important in the sense that I know many founders who have run global businesses in the past. And let's say they have a little office in Ebisu, and I go to the office, I open the door, there's no Japanese. So from all over the world, and with very diverse genders, and so they're pulling startup together. And apparently, what I'm finding is that all the members love living in Japan, and the food is good, whatnot, the environment is good, and so it sort of gives me hope, because. As you know, we're running this big conference. Government's really serious, and but still, it's fair to say that when you compare Japan's startup market size and the GDP, we're the underdog, and we really need to grow this. And to do it, really, diversity, bringing in talent, more female into the workforce. More international people coming into the workforce. It's really essential to make all this happen, I think.
Thank you. I have one follow-up question to you, that many of the next unicorn startup from Japan has also the global team. But in Japan's market, I think language is also one of the critical barrier to create this diverse group from day one. Do you have any ideas how we can create the global teams or diverse team from the beginning phase?
Well, you mean language being the barrier?
Yeah, language or the Japanese
Yes.
business culture. I think these are.
Use 11 labs or kotoba or just
Yeah, I mean like the kotoba, Japanese and English. So that will be one of the biggest barrier, that if they want to hire international talents, but the founders or the startup member is only available in Japanese, or they have never explored global market before.
Well, what I found when I was running Sony Ventures was that if you just put them in the environment, there was this now currently famous Sony Ventures managing director. But when he started with the team, he spoke no English. But after 2 years of active working on this business, he's like, really smooth. So that I don't think is going to be a real barrier. And obviously, many of my friends use all those simultaneous translation things, and it's quite fast. It's quite efficient right now, so that certainly helps. But I think what you're referring to is some of the old companies, not like Sony, but more of the traditional company mentality, and that's the reason why we have so many, activists in Japan right now trying to change the system, because the activists see the potential in the Japanese company's assets, and they think that if you tweak it, the valuation will go up. So I think market forces and it's good that I'm fortunate to see that Japan is getting good enough attention.
Thank you. That's one of the hope that we are getting more attention from the global investor or the activists. So Tim, what do you see as a network, how we can create more diverse network to make this for everyone? And
Well, I think the best thing is to highlight the wins that are already occurring. And looking at startups in particular, I think that startups are attractive, particularly attractive to a lot of women because they are in control. If you succeed, it's on you. If you fail, it's on you. And you might not have that kind of agency at large institutions. I mean, it's attractive for men for the same reason. But the other thing is startups also have those loose, diverse networks that you spoke of earlier. If you have a woman who is an exceptional at marketing and sales, and she's not comfortable at the company she's at, it's very easy to move to a new startup. There's much more stigma about jumping between large enterprises, but there's tremendous mobility in startups. So I think that going back to the importance of role models, highlight the successes that startups bring to bear. Highlight the successful cases both of innovation, of female entrepreneurship, and just make it more widely understood that this is just a natural part of business. In terms of diversity, you were asking earlier about the global perspective. I think that it's not so much necessarily learning from global practices, but from the diversity of thought and opinion. If you look historically, I mean, this is true in San Francisco as well. The foreign founder community is very large and has a very large impact on it, the Indian community in particular. But historically, any center of innovation, of science, of engineering, if you look at Cordoba, if you look at Vienna, New Orleans, it has always been this mixture of ideas, this mixture of cultures, that something new gets synthesized. Now the challenge, of course, is that you can't necessarily predict what is going to be synthesized. You can't predict the exact direction this innovation is going to take, but that's fine. That's the chance to genuinely create something new, and I think it's already happening in Japan's startups. And events like this can really help focus attention on those successes.
thank you. So I think not just learning from global side, but we are creating our own community and creating more platform to
Exactly so, making something new.
making something new is a very fun way and make me feel more excited. But also I have one question that I also do a Venture Cafe Tokyo, those kind of events that innovators get together. But many of the traditional Japanese business professional is coming here for some certain purpose. Today I want to learn about the physical AI, and then they just left without communication. So how we can actually create an interaction between?
Well, I think that is true everywhere. Most people are going to an event because they want something specific out of it. And that's the importance of these loose networks, these small networks of creative people who are kind of working on the same problem together. And once those small groups come up with something that's interesting and cool, then everyone else wants to pay attention. So the people who are coming in from, mid-career or late career at large enterprises, I mean, I think it's great they're participating, but they're busy. They're just trying to figure out what's happening. They have some role to play, but they're not leading. So focus on creating, focus on doing something cool, and then people will notice.
Thank you. It's very interesting, and there was so many things to enjoy this, the London discussion and London learning from this kind of platform. So hearing from their own perspective, and then you've been working on lots of research and interviews to the startups. And you also from the METI, you're working for how we can create more resilient from the government side. Do you have any ideas what we can do?
Yes, so as we've talked through the problems that we have so far, I believe that it's not just gender, it's also age, but not just age, but also educational background. Some people could be prejudiced against people with different backgrounds. And for companies to care about DEI, as you guys mentioned, Japanese companies, they're not interested in the DEI concept. They might not, even if the government started having like sessions towards VCs or startups, they might not join because they're not interested anyways. So I think that I personally believe the key is to make it seem interesting, and sometimes not to have the DEI as the name, but have the name of something else. For example, like a key for the growth in startups, or like anything that kind of hiding the concept of DEI underneath and hinting that DEI is actually the key of the startup growth is, I think, how Japanese ecosystem will get healthier.
Yeah, kind of like unconsciously, they are
Yes.
kind of learning. That's also actually how we make our title today. We are trying to not too much highlighting the DEI part, but next unicorn, how we can create more global and scalable community together. That's kind of like hoping we have more attention to this kind of topic, and from not only from one sector, but the academia and ecosystem builder and investor and entrepreneur. Everyone has their own perspective. Then that gives more clarity for what we can do together. So we have 5 minutes left. So I'd like to go to the last conclusion. So throughout this 40 minutes discussion, I want to ask each of you for like less than 1 minute for one quick action you want to take with somebody, like not only one, but how you want to collaborate with others to make DI as a foundation for scalable, sustainable growth for this ecosystem. So anybody wants to start, or and maybe Tim?
Sure. Make introductions. Make these loose, small networks. If you know 2 people who are interested in working on the same interesting thing, introduce them. It's easy to create these small groups doing creative things. You don't need permission. Just do it.
Thank you. You don't need permission for the making an interaction. That's really true. So maybe Aiko-san, how about you?
Yeah, I personally think that at the core of diversity is self-awareness. The more people who are self-aware and are able to share who they are, why they're there, what is the purpose that they're bringing to the company, to the business, whatever platform it is. I think it's just so important for people to be able to to be aware, right? And also to be able to vocalize it as well. And that's something that we are doing at Koichigo as well, where we're empowering people to raise self-awareness so that they're able to identify, what kind of career they want to pursue. Is it entrepreneurship? Is it, a corporate job? Is it whatever it is, right? And what kind of family they want to build. Those are things that I think are so key. And so I think we will just keep doing what we do. But I would love to engage also with people who are interested in that as well, right? Self-awareness, how can managers help their employees become more self-aware and really, because of that, add value to the companies.
Thank you. I see you have the mic, so Hinako.
So this is a different perspective, but I think actually some of the startups, they want to have diversity, but they just don't have the opportunity to do so. So I think this is where we could get in. We could make them the opportunity to meet people with different backgrounds or different gender, age. And I think helping them to meet people from different backgrounds would for sure increase DEI. And not just reaching out to people who are not interested in DI, but also supporting the whole process of startups who are interested in DEI is what we could do firsthand.
Thank you. I think that will be one of the laws that local government should provide a system for encouraging the cross-border communication. So what about Gen-san? What is your takeaway?
Well, I just want to give credit to the group, Yu-san and the group, for really working on this for the last 3 years. And, at this point, I think, you can't really, in the startup world, you can't show up and says, what is diversity? You can't say that. So, I mean, it's sort of that recognition is there. So I think we've come up to a certain stage. We have to continue to work on this. But I sort of liked Hinako-san's approach, because, as I told you that, DEI, it's hard to sort of position DEI as the silver bullet to do anything. But if you start talking about, quality of decision making, how to scale the company, how to communicate the company more with VCs and partners, it becomes really a critical component. So I think discussing this in many different ways, I think would be important, and sharing great best practices. So let's look forward to the day when this becomes a no-brainer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such an encouragement message. So I learned a lot about how we can create more role model, like creating the diverse representation, and also make the introduction each other that is also easier to knowing people, someone new from your background, and self-aware, like what you want and who you are, and crossing the border, creating a system, and we need to keep taking action all the time. So we need to keep working on it. But thanks to this diverse panel, I have lots of insights, and I hope you can get some takeaways that you can do, take on action right now from here, from SysTech. So thank you very much for attention, and send a big applause to the panels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the session. And once again, please join me in thanking our speakers. Thank you so much. And we kindly invite the speaker to step down the stage. Thank you very much. Please proceed. Thank you very much.